graphic violence, explicit sex, nudity, coarse language, mature themes, and crude humor. I've got 10 movie recommendations loaded with the good stuff, and they're all free to watch on Tubi for a limited time. Many of these titles are also on Prime Video, Shudder, and other paid services. Stay tuned for the list recap for those details, but strap in for cheap thrills, cults, strippers, samurais, serial killers, and even undead vigilante soldiers in less time than you spend looking for stuff to watch every night.
Yeah! Give him a yeah!
How much money would it take for you to fist fight your best friend, or maybe pull one of your teeth out with a pair of pliers? Those are just a few of the questions asked in Cheap Thrills, my bottom pick on this list. It's an edgy romp of a dark comedy about a couple of guys who are down on their luck. They're out one night for a few drinks, and they meet a guy, apparently who has a ton of money to spend, who starts offering them cash to do heinous things. Things that honestly are pretty simple to do up front. Believe it or not, this is loosely based on a story by Roald Dahl, and it does kind of have that life lesson Roald Dahl quality to it, but like I said, it's an edgy movie. An edgy movie that gets gory, it's sexually graphic, and also just kind of unnerving at times as well. It's pretty disturbing while also being pretty funny. Most of the humor is derived from the scenario and the situation that they're in, not so much from snappy dialogue. This movie ultimately gets pretty intense, but they manage to keep it light enough that it doesn't really make your skin crawl.
But let me tell you this, no matter how much money's in that box, I'm not sucking his...
I can email these to you later.
Bob Crane, the star of the classic sitcom Hogan's Heroes, actually suffered from a severe sex addiction, and Paul Schrader, the writer of Taxi Driver, directed a movie about it titled Autofocus that stars Greg Kinnear as Bob Crane and Willem Dafoe as his wingman, I guess we'll call it. They're both great together in this movie. They've actually got this fantastic chemistry as a couple of sex addicts. And it's a surprisingly raunchy movie. I mean, you've got 60s and 70s style swingers parties, cameras set to autofocus, and autofocus ultimately does a good job of exploring addiction in general. And I'm a fan of Paul Schrader. He's done a bunch of really bizarre movies that I actually enjoy. This one, though, is probably his most straight down the middle flick.
I want to restart my career.
If I were to send you out again, I'd have to be able to tell people you're a new man.
Well, tell them sex is normal.
Kill List is a slow-paced thriller that only becomes graphic a handful of times, but when it does, man, does this movie hit you over the head with a hammer. This is from director Ben Wheatley, who would go on to do A Field in England and High Rise. Kill List, being his first feature film and lowest budget movie to date, I still think is his best. You ultimately follow a man investigating a cult, so Kill List actually has touches of Midsommar, even though the aesthetic and vibe of it is completely different. There is this creepy cult element, but you're dealing with someone on the fringes of it trying to figure out what's going on and, trying to figure out how to get inside. Like I said, the movie's extremely graphic and disturbing, but it's only a couple of times in the movie, and the way it's written and directed makes those moments insanely effective. Now, if you're in the mood for something that hits on all cylinders, something that's disturbing, gory, and sexually graphic, High Tension is a cult classic slasher from 2003 that still holds up. I mean, this one really does give you a disturbing movie bingo. It's got everything in it you could possibly want, yet it actually works together pretty well, especially considering the fact that there's little to no dialogue. You mainly just have a main character on the run for the bulk of the movie, and I know there's a ton of movies like that. I mean, this is quintessential slasher stuff, yet High Tension steps on the gas and does not let go. It's bloody, it's intense, it's got weird sexual elements that are going to catch you by surprise, and it's got some major twists in it that, again, over 20 years later, they still hold up. Speaking of movies that hold up though, the original Evil Dead is still a cult classic to this day. I love that movie, but I gotta say, the remake titled Evil Dead, I think went criminally underappreciated when it released, and I'm one of the people who underappreciated it. Now, the main reason I think this happened is because tone-wise, Evil Dead is very different from the original. The original Sam Raimi movies had this lively, fun spark to them, loaded with practical effects. Yes, they're disturbing, but also kind of tongue-in-cheek and, campy and funny in an extreme way that almost no other movie is able to touch. Yet this remake goes for dark and only dark, a tone I was not super excited about when I first saw this in the theater, yet this movie has held up with time, I think way better than anyone would have expected. If you want a dark, twisted horror movie, this one checks all the boxes.
Please. You have to get me out of here.
If you want a graphic movie that is loads of fun just like the original Evil Dead movie, you gotta watch Sam Raimi's triumphant return to horror with Drag Me to Hell. I absolutely love this movie. This one has Evil Dead vibes from beginning to end. It's loads of fun while also being this gross out, kind of Halloween appropriate horror movie. With it being September already, I would be surprised if this movie leaves Tubi by October, but you never know. You may want to watch it soon. Just like Evil Dead, this one's loaded with practical effects. They're tons of fun. It's a funhouse possession style movie. Yes, it's got some gross out moments in it, but they're all done in kind of a fun nature if you like gross out stuff. If you don't, stay away from this movie, but if you wanted to watch something disturbing and a bit fun, Drag Me to Hell is a fantastic watch.
Soon it will be you who comes begging to me.
Quite possibly one of the greatest serial killer movies ever created is a complete work of fiction because the house that Jack built puts you in the shoes of a killer played by Matt Dillon. Now, this movie's weird as all get out, but it's probably one of Lars von Trier's more straightforward movies as well. I will say this one is insanely disturbing, and not just from the visuals. The tension that gets cranked up in the house that Jack built is completely unnerving, and there are a bunch of sequences that will do that to you. In fact, this movie is almost like a collection of chapters or short films where this serial killer is recalling some of his more memorable kills, I guess we'll say. So, almost every single scene is ratcheting up that tension in a way that is going to make your skin crawl, and some of the murder sequences are beyond disturbing. Again, this is Lars von Trier. It's not his most disturbing movie, but my goodness, is this one going to make your skin crawl. It's also pretty brilliant and artsy. It goes in a direction you're not going to expect, a mind-blowing direction if you're into that stuff. I loved where this movie ended up. I even loved some of the awkward aftermath in some of his kills, him trying to get away with it. Some of those scenes were absolutely fantastic, but I'm telling you, this one's really unnerving, and it's difficult to watch more than once.
Mind if I take a look in the van, please, sir?
I'd be a bad guy if I said no.
If you're looking for something extremely graphic though, like something really only for watching one time, the cult classic Japanese crime thriller Ichi the Killer might be enough to make your eyes water. This is a brutal movie about an enforcer, a guy that works for the mob that has no problem killing people. In fact, it's like his favorite thing to do. Not only that, but he is just an insanely dark, twisted character, yet Ichi the Killer is an eye-popping movie. I mean, incredible cinematography. This thing just leaps off of the screen. I mean, it's such an intense visual presentation, it's almost worth watching multiple times if this thing wasn't so damn disturbing. And it's one of the more memorable movies from director Takashi Miike, maybe the most prolific director to have ever lived. He's done about 100 movies. This is one of his best, One that I absolutely love and recommend, though, is Blade of the Immortal. Now, it didn't make this list because it's not insanely graphic. It is a bloody movie, but I think fans of Kill Bill will really get into this. It's a supernatural Ronin kind of samurai story that is based on a comic book and has a lot of flair and comic book style. So if you enjoy the more cartoonish elements of movies like Kill Bill, there's a lot to love with Blade of the Immortal. Next up, we've got a true story based on the real-life Ichi the Killer, Uday Hussein, in The Devil's Double. Uday Hussein is one of Saddam Hussein's son and probably his wildest and most sadistic. He's played by Dominic Cooper in this movie, but Dominic Cooper is pulling double duty in The Devil's Double, and it's a true story that mostly revolves around Uday Hussein's double, a person who was forced to do this because he looked a lot like him, and Dominic Cooper does an amazing job of playing both characters. He's playing the sadistic Uday Hussein character just to a T. Not that I know what that guy was like, but he plays just an incredible, maniacal bad guy, yet he's also having to play a guy who's playing that guy. The movie's worth watching for the duality of that performance alone. You know, it's almost like a loose adaptation of The Prince and the Pauper, yet this movie goes to some wild places. It's got a flashy style to it. It's actually from the director of The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin, another just tough, badass movie. This one just went criminally underappreciated when it released. I love recommending this movie whenever I see it available.
We could be twins, no? You are asking me to extinguish myself. You do understand, Latif. It is quite simple.
We've still got my top two picks. My number one being one I haven't seen available on streaming in years. I'm so excited to recommend it here. But first, I've got some honorable mentions. Some other graphic movies currently included with Tubi. Crank 2, I think, is one that is just loads of fun. It's just over the top in every way imaginable, and is graphic in almost every way imaginable as well. Not really a good movie, but if you love over the top stuff, it doesn't get a whole lot better than Crank. Same goes for Hobo with a Shotgun. I will say this movie is a little more artsy than Crank 2, and it's successful in its artsiness, but it's a down and dirty grindhouse flick with a lot of blood and guts, some really sadistic bad guys, but nothing's as sadistic as Terrifier 2, probably the most disturbing slasher movie ever made, and it is well over 2 hours long. The only reason it didn't make the list here is because people who are into this kind of stuff, they've seen and have heard about Terrifier 2. It's one of the best movies of its kind. If you don't like gory stuff, don't ever watch the Terrifier movies.
We have a very special guest with us today, all the way from Miles County. Please welcome Art the Clown.
But if you want even more graphic recommendations on Tubi, I did a video just like this 2 months ago. It included movies like Revenge, Hardcore, starring George C. Scott, and the meth-fueled cult classic Spun. All made that list. All three of those are still included on Tubi. But for an insanely disturbing 1980s thriller with Nicole Kidman that is more sexually graphic than Eyes Wide Shut, we've got Dead Calm at the number 2 spot on this list, a movie I have not seen available to stream anywhere, maybe ever. If not, it's been a very, very long time. If you've never seen this movie, it is an incredible thriller, fairly slow-paced, but quintessential 1980s thriller vibes off of this one. You follow a couple out on a sailing trip where they come across some wreckage. They're able to save one survivor, played by Billy Zane, a survivor who is not who he says he is, and man, does this movie go to some intense places. Insanely sexually graphic, but also just edge of your seat thriller stuff. You would not think that a movie that takes place almost exclusively on a sailboat could keep moving the way Dead Calm does, yet this movie is just electric, which is why it's my number 2 pick on a list full of bangers. Yet I'll admit up front, my number 1 pick is not the best movie on this list, But it's a blood-soaked vampire flick I rarely see available on streaming, and I love recommending The Revenant. And no, not the Leonardo DiCaprio movie. Like I said, this is a blood-soaked vampire flick. I say vampire, that's not totally accurate. You actually follow a soldier who's killed in action who ends up coming back to life. He is the undead, and instead of going and eating people, he decides to go after bad guys. So him and his best friend turn into undead vigilantes in this movie, and it is every bit as good as you could want a movie like this to be. It's funny, it's interesting, it's got a great spark to it, even though you're not going to recognize a lot of faces in it. This too would make for an incredible Halloween watch. A movie that honestly probably would not have ranked #1 on this top 10 list, but again, I've rarely see it available on streaming, which is why it's my strongest recommendation off this list. It's a horror movie that's not going to totally freak you out or gross you out, but could be an amazing primer for the Halloween season. Here's a quick recap of the list along with some other places currently streaming these same movies. But thanks for watching this Tubi list, and you will see me on the next one.